Today we're going to be talking about the Zman Hellraiser. I'm going to be breaking this lure down for you guys. I've had the opportunity to fish it now for pretty consistently the last month or so. I've been putting in the hours with this lure, and I got 3 words for you. It gets bit. But the question we got to ask ourselves is why? Why do fish bite this lure? As goofy as this lure is, as goofy as that thing is right there, why do fish have to bite it? I'm going to dive into all that. I'm going to give you guys my opinion on why I think fish are biting this lure. I'm going to break down the areas and locations that I feel like this is the best to fish this lure. But first, let's give credit where credit's due. Let's hear from Ron Davis, the creator of the original ChatterBait, the dude that pioneered the ChatterBait that we all love to fish, and the designer of the Zman Hellraiser.
I've had a lot of time to play, but if I didn't have that, what else would I be doing? I always wanted the ChatterBait. See, I fished the ChatterBait long before it ever hit the market. And of course, caught a lot of fish. I know it was fun going to fish the ChatterBait. Nobody else had one, you know. But once I got my feel of the ChatterBait, I said, well, dang, this ought to work on top too. I was trying to figure out a way to get that blade to come up there and do that on top of the water. And I piddled with that thing and piddled that thing up. I said, well, that ain't gonna work. You could, once you bring that blade to the surface, it's gonna slide. And that's what I come up with. I started messing with that dowel rod, sticking that daggum tie up there, and then putting that blade behind, and it acts like a chatterbait on top of the water, you know. Springtime buzzbait bite. And me personally now, fishing a buzzbait, okay? I miss too many fish. They come up there, and I'm here again. This is my opinion. I'm not gonna make no absolute statement about no fishing, but they're hitting the blade. That's why people start putting goddamn trailer hooks on it about 9 miles long. But with this bait looking so much like a buzz bait, and you got those incredible hooks in that thing, they ain't gonna be missing too many fish on that thing. You know, not many. I've got all kind of crazy things. I'm working on blades on everything, you know. Yeah, I got some that work well, some of them don't work well today. I mean, really, you know. That thing there, that bait right there is as deadly as anything I got in this boat. And it's the stupidest. Ron, the first time I pulled that thing out, he said, Dad, that's the stupidest looking thing I ever seen, huh? Realistically, the craziest your bait acts in the water, better chance you got to catch a bass. I think you guys have pretty much convinced the public or the bass fishing world that little old blade in front of that bait's kind of effective. I just soon put it on front of everything, you know.
So let's take away 2 things from that video with Ron. Number 1, as we all know, no matter what, a chatterbait will always get bit. No matter where you're at, what you're doing, you will get bit on a chatterbait. And number 2, the goofiest looking lures, the lures you think will not get bit, for whatever reason, bass seem to like it. And that has those 2 key points built into this one topwater lure. And that's right, I said topwater lure. That's what the Zman Hellraiser was designed to be. Now, if we take a closer look at the Zman Hellraiser, it has a vibrating jig style blade. This little piece right here is a weight, which in return, when you cast this baby out there, this thing wants to naturally sink. So you bomb it out there, right, like I just did. If you don't start your retrieve immediately, that bait will sink down. I've casted this bait, guys, honestly, out into 25 foot of water. I was looking at a single fish on live scope. I cast this thing out there, trying to get him to get an underwater strike, right? And although the fish had interest, I never did get an underwater strike. Now, it's something I've been messing around with a little bit with this lure, but what will happen is, as fast as this thing sinks, it will return to the surface just as fast because of how it's designed with where that line tie is. So if you look, the line tie isn't right at the nose of the bait like your traditional topwater baits are. It's actually back there about 1.5 inches. So what will happen is this thing starts sinking down, right? But the second you start putting tension on your line, it immediately torpedoes back up to the surface and creating that chatterbait effect the whole way back up. Now, I chose black because black, in my opinion, is one of the best colored topwater lures. Whether it's daytime or nighttime, the fish just see it. So it's not a natural looking bait by any means, but it is one of my favorite colors for topwater. But that's one thing to consider, is that this thing will sink super fast. So if you're fishing it in shallow water, what you're going to want to do is cast it out there, cast it out there, but you're going to want to start that retrieve and start getting that lure back. Because if you get this thing hung up in the grass, man, I mean, you're talking about hooks for days down there, and you're going to be dragging in a bunch of cabbage. Another reason I believe this lure is so effective to catching fish and hooking fish up is the placement of those treble hooks. All your commotion, okay, all your commotion from this lure is coming from the ass end of it, the very back end of that. And what happens is, this is the body of the bait. Like you heard Ron, he messed with wooden dowel rods to create this. But the body of this bait is stuck up out of the water. Just the ass end of it is basically in the water, and that's where all your commotion is. This is what's going to trigger the bite, the blade right here. And as we all know, topwater is nothing but a reaction bite. Has nothing to do with anything else. If you're fishing topwater and you catch a fish, it was 100% a reaction bite. So this thing creates so much commotion down there, right under the surface, that he has perfectly designed it to put a treble hook right at the blade. Okay, so the fish, when they react to this bait, what they're going to do, and every fish I've caught has been hooked up on this back blade, they're going to come up and they're going to hit that blade. Well, when they go to hit that blade, guess what? They're getting the business. But right in front of it, a slightly bigger treble hook, as you can see, I don't know how well you can see it, but the treble hook in the front is slightly bigger than the one in the back. That's why I feel like this bait shines above the rest of them. I mean, no matter what, if a fish blows up and misses the lure, they miss the lure. But if they get their face anywhere near this bad boy, you're going to hook them up. So in the video, Ron had stated that he created the Hellraiser to be a better option for buzzbait fishing, because as we all know, buzzbait fishing can be kind of a double-edged sword. You'll get a lot of strikes, you'll get a lot of blow-ups, but your hookup ratio is always lower unless you have 9 miles of trailer hooks on that. This thing is nothing but a giant trailer hook. But where I disagree with Ron, now I'm not saying he's wrong, but my opinion is, this isn't a buzzbait or an attempt to act like a buzzbait. This is more like a chatterbait. This is more like a chatterbait wake bait hybrid, okay? So where I'm going with that is, you've got the blade of the chatterbait, right? You got the blade of the chatterbait, but the erratic action this thing puts out, it does put out a wake. It gets that classic, I'm explaining to you right now as I reel it in, but it's got that classic vibration in the rod tip, that classic chatterbait or jackhammer style vibration that we all love to feel in the rod tip when we're fishing it. It has that reaction, but that dowel rod, the body of the bait that's coming out, is doing this the whole time. And it's creating a good wake. It really does create a good wake. It's simply a cast and retrieve, man. It's a cast, retrieve, cast, retrieve. So anybody can fish this. So where the Hellraiser is going to be most effective for you guys is, where I have found, is shallow water cover. Okay, so your lily pads, your protruding grass, if you were to parallel those things to draw a fish out from underneath of them, rather than pitching a frog in there, or if you're not getting bit on the frog or getting blown up on the frog, maybe throw this baby in and parallel that cover. This is where I've gotten my bites. I've also gotten my bites near elevated structures, such as docks, such as boats, just paralleling them. I mean, it's kind of difficult to skip this thing under a dock, but you can get up tight to that structure and work it slowly. And actually, I've actually caught a couple fish letting it sink a little bit. If you got deeper structure, like if your docks are in deeper water and there's not a lot of grassy cover there, cast that baby out and let it sink a little bit, in case there's something hiding up under that dock. Let it sink a little bit and then give it a rip. and then get it back up on the surface of the water and then get your retrieve. That could create a reaction bite for you, and that's where this lure really shines. Another location or application that I found this lure really shined in was night fishing. I actually went out, me and my buddy Darius went out and did a little night fishing, and I crushed him on this lure. I didn't get big fish, so we went out with the hopes of catching some bigs, right? We didn't get very many bigs, but we did catch numbers. And I probably caught, the amount of time I spent casting this, I went rifling through a bunch of different lures, but I did spend some time with the Hellraiser, and I probably caught a half dozen fish on it. So that was pretty cool. And again, night fishing, black is where you're going to want to go with it. It's just the best color there is for night fishing. The fish can see it, puts out a good silhouette. You're not going to get a better color for night fishing. Now this bait will work midday for topwater, just like any other topwater bite, but what you're going to want to look for is those shaded areas. You're going to want to look for them covery areas where fish are hiding out, especially this time of year, guys, when it's hot, it's summertime, it's miserable. The fish want to get in the shade. They want to find cooler water. So if you can get this thing close to some shaded areas or punch it in there and then rip it out, you're going to get bit on it, just whether or not the fish are there. But again, this is 100% reaction. So to answer my initial questions about the Zman HELLRAIZER, such as why isn't this lure being talked about? Why isn't this lure being hyped? Why aren't people fishing it? It's the only thing I can think of is that people are not fishing this lure. Maybe they think it's a novelty item. Maybe they don't think it's real. Maybe they think the price point is too much. Well, I'm going to tell you, the price point's the same as your Whopper Plopper or your popular propeller style topwater lures. So that can't be it. What I think it is that anglers, including myself, get stuck in our confidence baits. We get stuck in our confidence baits. We get stuck in our confidence topwater, our jigs, our chatterbaits, our Ned rigs, whatever you're fishing, you get stuck in that. And what happens is, what's counterproductive about that is my confidence baits are more than likely very similar to yours and Joe Schmo and John Doe over here on the other side of the state, and we all may fish the same water, but these bass are seeing this lure, not this one, but these confident baits that we all throw, they're seeing them more than anything else. And I'm guilty for it too, guys. I have a list of confidence baits that are probably very similar to the list of confidence baits that you guys use. But with this, they're not seeing this. They're never seeing this. This is something totally different, total different realm. And I think that plays a key part into this getting bit as often as it does. We're not talking about walleye here, guys. Bass are smart. Whether you know it or not, I'm sure you do if you're watching this video, but they're not always that easy to catch. And a lot of that is giving them something different to look at. Just like Ron had said in the video I showed you guys. The goofiest looking lures sometimes are the best lures for bass fishing. So in my opinion, I just feel that anglers get stuck in their confidence bait, get stuck in their own ways, and that's why they're not trying this lure. Because honestly, the internet isn't flooded or saturated with content about this lure. Instagram, YouTube, I mean, there's some videos out there, but I put this to the test, and I'm telling you guys, if you don't have the Zman HELLRAIZER in your arsenal, in your topwater arsenal, go buy one, go to Tackle Warehouse, order one up, go to Bass Pro, Cabela's, pick one up, and give it some time. Just like any other new bait that we fish, you have to give it some time. It is a goofy looking lure, but I'm telling you, man, you're going to get bit, you're going to get big bites, and if you're a night fisherman, this needs to be tied on first thing. Hey, and speaking of goofy baits, I'm going to leave a little video for you guys right here. I did about a month or so ago. It's called the Yamatanuki. Another goofy looking lure, a soft plastic that not a lot of people are throwing. The pros are throwing it. I've thrown it. I did a full breakdown on it, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm super impressed with it. So you need to check that out. Add the Yamatanuki to your arsenal. Leave me a comment. And make sure if you subscribe to hit that bell notification. That way you're notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you guys again for watching. We'll see you on the next one.